I saw this video that was pretty cool. Let's check it out.
It's time to kill an old meme. There are so many stories I've seen which are labeled as depressing, understandably so from all the traumatized characters and the messed up stuff they go through. However, when I see people label something like a Silent Voice, Evangelion, or Higurashi as overall depressing, I can't help but feel like you kind of missed the point. And I felt this most recently after reading the extremely uplifting manga Chainsaw Man.
Okay, editing is fire.
There's a lot of stuff in Chainsaw Man, and it sets out to say a lot of things. But as someone who has been super unconfident in my ability to make my own decisions for most of my life and always relied on other people to make decisions for me, I connected most with the theme around taking control over your life and the analogy to the country and town mice. The story of the town mouse and country mouse is obviously an important part of Chainsaw Man's theme around control, as it's brought up like a few times, I guess. There are people who want less of a challenge and more comfort.
Mm. So like, I feel like the way he's kind of interpreting it is like part of control, and the way I kind of interpreted it was more about like why you chose to do something, rather than more about like your tendencies or like your um ability to have courage. But let's see.
In their life like the country mouse, and there are people who want to take risks in order to get exactly what they want like the town mouse.
That's crazy. That's really nice. Like this video has hella editing.
I wonder which philosophy
Damn, bro. Put a lot of time into this. I respect that.
Chainsaw Man subscribes to. Right from chapter 1, Chainsaw Man basically gives its overall opinion on the country/town mouse analogy before the analogy had even been brought up. Denji is definitely a town mouse kind of guy. He starts off the manga as someone who desires control over his life, and while the Yakuza boss Season Slave 2 does say that Denji always does what he's told, Denji is clearly just doing what he can so that he can gain control over his life. Even with his massive and seemingly impossible to pay off debt to the Yakuza, he has sold multiple organs and goes out to fight devils every day. He wants to achieve his dream of freedom and a better life, and he's going to work every day towards getting that dream. While fighting the zombie devil and the Yakuza zombies, Denji almost gives in to the country mouse mentality. For a second, he thinks that these Yakuza people already had a happy life.
He's saying here they already have a happy life. Um, how come they wanted an even better life? So it's even questioning like their greed. Like, why do you always want more? Like, you already had everything. Why do you want more? Like, type shit. Almost in like a superficial way. But I think in the end, if you watch the anime, he like succumbs to that.
And yet they wanted more, resulting in them turning into zombies, and that maybe he's the same. Maybe he should have.
It's almost, oh, that's actually interesting. It's almost like their greed, their wanting for more power, more control over Japan, got them to um like almost consume themselves, like, and it turned them into zombies. And it's funny how like they'll always justify what they do. For instance, like they're doing it to save Japan, but like in reality, what they're truly chasing is like control and power and stuff like that.
Stayed content with his simple, miserable life with Kuchida, but then he realizes that dreaming isn't a bad thing, and he decides that once he's finally free of the Yakuza, he will continue with his drive to achieve every goal he sets for
Wait, so oh, I get it. Everybody dreams. You can't help it. Then dreaming is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but
himself. Whether it's touching boobs, getting a kiss, or less important things, he will always try to find a way to get what he wants, usually through slaughtering those demons with the power of the chainsaw. However,
so maybe he's not saying like everyone dreams, everyone has aspirations, everyone has goals. Maybe it's not about the dreams itself that are bad, but it's about what you dream about. Which is why I thought like the country and city mouse like represented more. I felt like it was more about the fact of like what you chose was important, where like the city mouse values like superficial things such as fame, power, money, and stuff like sex, food, all that stuff, while this country mouse like ceases to care about those things and like values like deeper, more important values. But yeah, let's keep watching.
the start, Denji is not a perfect town mouse. He has a habit of losing confidence in himself, and he tends to fall into situations that involve him not really being able to have complete control over his life. And so even someone as straightforwardly independent as Denji is able to fall in love with the idea of trading away control over your life for comfort, which is represented by Makima, the control devil. The type of control Makima desires is not individuals' control over their
Wait,
own
wait.
lives, but her
So
control,
like
which is
2x
represented.
speed, bro.
And so even someone as straightforwardly of losing confidence in himself, and he tends to fall into situations that involve him not really being able to have complete control over his life. And so even someone as straightforwardly independent as Denji is able to fall in love with the idea of trading away control over your life for comfort, which is represented by Makima, the control devil. The type of control Makima desires is not individuals' control over their own lives, but her control.
So I see his perspective. He's more talking about like um about complacency, where like the city mouse is like taking the actions to create change in their life, to better their life, while the country mouse stays stagnant and almost like lets them be controlled in order to, you know, in order to, just like to live with peace of mind. But I guess when you're at the will of other people, you're actually taking more of a risk. For instance, if like in life you decide to be complacent, you know, not want like be too afraid to change, it's actually a bigger risk rather than not taking any chances at all. So, yep.
Over them. Her desire is for everyone to give themselves up as dogs for her to use and achieve her own goals, and in exchange, they will be free from having to make their own decisions. Makima wants an army of country mice, people who aren't confident in their ability to make their own decisions and would rather have someone else give them orders.
I mean, I don't think that's I don't know if I agree with that because like the analogy she gave where like she used the dogs in order to kill the country mice, it's not that country mice want to be controlled. It's more so Makima, no matter whether you choose to be a country mice or the city mice, she always has like that sphere of influence on everyone. And yeah, I feel like she's like overseeing everything and she kind of just wants to watch the world burn and like go into chaos and stuff like that.
Denji, as the pure representation of base individuality, stays confident up until the point where he is forced to kill Aki. As a town mouse, Denji has been able to crawl up in the world from basically nothing. However, the sacrifice you make when you take responsibility for your own decisions is the possibility of failure, which is what the death of Aki ends up being for Denji. Combined with the feeling of losing one of his best friends, Denji's failure to protect that friend crushes him, and so he gives him.
So saying his lack of control is what makes him fail to save Aki. I mean, I feel like it just shows more like how crazy Makima is.
Himself up as a dog to Makima, because if someone else makes the decisions for him, he won't have to care about any consequences being the fault of his own. Denji then quickly realizes the problem that comes with giving up control of your life. Makima instantly murders Power and then sends Denji on a quest to murder all the other devils to achieve the world she wants to see. And while Denji is very against what Makima is doing, especially the murder of Power, he isn't able to do anything because he is a dog and dogs aren't supposed to question what their masters tell them to do. Dogs kill when told to kill without thinking about it. So with this, Chainsaw Man is saying that if you let someone else make your decisions for you, if you decide to become a country mouse, you will just be a tool of whoever you belong to. And in Denji's case specifically, the idea that becoming a country mouse would lead to comfort turns out to be a complete lie. Even though he gives up on risk, just like a country mouse, he isn't able to achieve comfort because of all the messed up stuff Makima wants to do. Much earlier in the manga, Makima had talked about why she likes the country mouse, but it isn't because she likes the idea of a risk-free.
So it's like if you let so basically if you let power control you without like and like turn a blind eye, that's where you get like fucked over and like you get control in like a bad way. Which is yeah, which is kind of like it's also a very important lesson where you kind of have to take agency for your own life and yeah, I think that's a pretty important message where like even though you may have like the um possibility of living whatever life you want, whichever path you choose, you always have to take agency to creating that better life because without taking that risk, you're risking living a more risky life. And paradoxically, because your life is at the whims of other people, like you are actually risking, big changes in your life by not taking any action. For instance, if you like stay in that job, like who knows, you could risk losing that position. You could risk living a life that's like not meaningful. So there's like a lot of risks that can be created by not taking any risks at all.
Comfortable life. It's because she enjoys digging them out from underground. And just like how she won't let the real country mice live in peace, she will also disrupt the desired comfort of anyone who submits to her simply because of her own goals. However, in Chainsaw Man, it isn't as simple as just be a town mouse. Part of its main message is definitely that you have to accept risk and danger if you want to get what you want. But its full message is something a bit more nuanced. The two characters who explicitly say that the town mouse is better are Denji and Aki. And if Aki is a town mouse, aka correct, why did he fall under Makima's control? Well, Aki was always driven by revenge. He put up with being a public sector devil hunter, the most dangerous job in the universe, so that he could kill the gun devil. All town mice know they have to put up with danger to get what they want. However, Aki is too accepting of his environment. It puts him at the command of Makima, who turns out to not have super great intentions for him. In the end, being a town mouse in these circumstances
Like despite like city mouse or country mouse, like Makima, she's just too OP, man. She be controlling everyone.
leads to Aki being Makima's slave and not actually being able to get what he wants. In chapter 72, Aki decides to pull out of the expedition to kill the gun devil. He has realized that he doesn't really want to kill the gun devil more than protect Denji and Power. However, in the next chapter, Makima forces Denji and Power back into the mission, which makes Aki decide he needs to rejoin. Aki was thinking about the situation in too simple of a way, as if the only options were letting Denji and Power go alone or him going with them. He failed to realize there were options outside of what Makima presented to him. He was too accepting of the town mouse environment, and so he died. Denji has a similar problem for most of the manga, best represented in the food he eats, which is like everything. He eats everything. At the start of the manga, Denji is working towards freedom, but he's also happy with eating barely anything, representing how he's too comfortable in a situation that he shouldn't be accepting. Even if he did manage to pay off his debt, it's highly unlikely the Yakuza would have actually let him go, but he's just not smart enough to realize this. Later on as a double hunter, Denji's happy with the bare minimum of 3 meals a day, and he's also happy working in a system built to eventually make him Makima's dog because he thinks working in this system will get him towards killing the Gun Devil and getting that one wish Makima promised him. However, in chapter 73, we find out that the state of the Gun Devil has been a lie. The expedition to kill the Gun Devil probably isn't actually an expedition to kill the Gun Devil. Its true purpose is to just take that gun.
I can see how like when you're like when you're told what you value, I feel like it's much easier to be controlled. For instance, Makima telling Aki like you need to go for the gun devil, and like how easily he's able to be manipulated. I feel like that can show like the forces that are in play when you like choose the values that you truly like choose the values that you want, because there always be forces that like will make you think otherwise, because when you're like when people choose what you value for yourself, that's a way for control, that's a way to decide your actions as well, and like the way of life and the value you bring to other people by manipulating what you believe. So I think that's what like Aki and or like that's what mainly Aki represents.
Devil for Japan. This new information leaves the gang very confused, especially Denji. After all, Makima had promised Denji that once he killed the Gun Devil, she would grant him one wish. But it turns out that the Gun Devil is never going to be killed, and so Denji will never get what he wants. Denji goes along with Makima's plans, which leads to him killing Aki. And then it turns out that he actually will be getting a wish from Makima. However, this entire situation had been planned out by Makima. Everything was meant to lead up to this moment, where the only thing Denji could ask for would be to become Makima's dog. So it turns out that being a town mouse will be.
But I feel like in Denji's case, it also shows how like no matter whether you choose the city mouse or like whatever you value, whether you choose to value the things the city mouse offers or what the country mouse offers, Makima's just like too OP, bro. She manipulates you either way, cause she's saying even like her idea was to give him good food, give him, everything he wanted, and then to take that away. So whether if he valued only food, only the superficial stuff, and she was able to take that away, that would be a way to control him. If it was taking away the people he loved, when he like created a genuine connection for the people in his life, that was also a way for control. So I don't think Makima's like saying that like the city mouse or the country mouse is more manipulative. I feel like it just shows that like there will always be like she's just like that like person who just wants like there to be chaos.
Being too accepting of the danger of the city is basically the same thing as surrendering control of your life away, which is exactly what Makima wants from the country mice, and exactly what happens to both Aki and Denji. Aki gets mind controlled by Makima and gets turned into the gun fiend, forcing him to get killed by Denji, who then asks to become Makima's dog, and then turns into Mega Chainsaw Man until he gets a hamburger with Kobeni. Through these experiences, Denji realizes the problem of being too accepting of your environment and realizes what he has to do. Denji's main goal since the start of the manga was always to have a normal, comfortable life, which could be seen as similar to someone who wants to be a country mouse. However, as Denji finds out, it's not possible to live a comfortable life if you give up risk. And so what Chainsaw Man's final message about this whole mouse habitat thing is that
So like on the contrary to like this view about like city mouse and country mouse representing complacency, I feel like it also represents like the balance between chasing superficial things and chasing what truly matters. Cause like as long as you're chasing like the superficial values, it's very hard to live a life with true meaning. And that kind of shows like even in glimpses where Denji wants to, truly start pursuing the things that like truly matter. It's his like constant pursuit of the city life that truly comes to bite him in the back, and that like also causes so many of the tragedies throughout the whole series.
it's not actually possible to be comfortable as a country mouse. If you want comfort in your life, you need to keep setting goals for yourself, working towards those goals, and once you achieve those goals, set new ones. Once you're free from the Yakuza, the next goal is touching boobs, and then the next is getting a kiss. You can't just surrender yourself to someone else's control, you need to slice her open with a chainsaw. In chapter 92, Denji sits down with Kobeni.
So like this again, it's like talking about like no matter what you want to do, whatever change you want to make means you have to take action.
And reflects on how bad things have gone. He delivers the poetic line, "My heart feels like it's at the bottom of a toilet clogged with crap." He also reflects on how he has been trying to achieve goals in his life, but never tried drastically changing his environment, saying that he has always been following other people's orders. However, Kobeni surprises Denji by saying, "Isn't that just normal though?" Throughout the manga, Kobeni definitely seems like the most country mouse pilled person. She's constantly scared, and always scared, but she's somehow able to get through it all. And the reason for that is she knows that there's no such thing as a life free of bad things.
See, like this interpretation, it's like okay, the country mouse is not to be like put into reckon, where like the country mouse is the person that doesn't want to take action, while the city mouse is the person who takes action to create change. Which I see that perspective, but my initial focus on like the idea of like your why of what you value um instead of what you do is because of the focus on the idea of like good food and no good food, where like the good food that's offered is more about like stuff that really doesn't matter, where you're sacrificing that in the countryside where you're getting safety and comfort. I feel like that more ties into what you value instead of what you do, you know? I think it's almost like a balance between those two, where like whichever why you choose, you almost have to adopt the city mindset of like taking risks to create change in this perspective.
Except in your dreams. Every person's life, whether you're a country or town mouse, will have bad things. So why wouldn't you take the path that allows you to get what you want? The pain caused by bad things in the present is temporary, as long as you set goals for the future and set out to achieve them, because the future is
So like yeah, so like this perspective is more about like no matter like what actions you take or whichever situation you are, there will always be problems in your life, but it's about choosing the problems you want to face, choosing the pain, the struggle that you want to face, because living a life of complacency might give you short-term relief but give you long-term anguish, whereas if you take that short-term pain, you can get a long-term fulfillment where you actually change your life. So he's kind of saying, why not just take the pain now and just get something that is better, uh, as that something that has a net positive.
best. The future is best. The future is, but also, you won't be able to achieve all your goals by just going along with the system, even if it seems like working in this system is the only way to achieve your goals. Sometimes you need to fight against it. Sometimes as a town mouse, it's actually possible to get rid of the danger of the city. You don't have to accept all of the hardships to get the tasty food. Denji still says he wants
Wait,
to be
what?
normal.
Sorry,
Then he turns on
I
the
was kind of
if
like
it seems like working in this system is the only
so
the future
shady.
is best. The future is, but also, you won't be able to achieve all your goals by just going along with the system, even if it seems like working in this system is the only way to achieve your goals. Sometimes you need to fight against it. Sometimes as a town mouse, it's actually possible to get rid of the danger of the city. You don't have to accept all of the hardships to get the tasty food. Denji still
So you don't have to go against the system. So basically, do things that are unconventional in order to get what you want. But sometimes you gotta face the system to get the good food, and like you don't need things like those superficial things. I don't even know. I don't even know. Or like you don't need to take the conventional path in order to like take like what you need in order to get the same feelings of fulfillment. Where like that's not the only path. You can like sometimes break the rules and choose your own path. Where the one set path that is normal for everyone might not be for everyone. And it's almost like an assertion that there are other paths out there.
says he wants to be normal. But then he turns on the TV and sees all the people in the streets cheering for Chainsaw Man. Even though he had failed a few times, even though he had been too accepting of his circumstances for most of his life, his massive accomplishments are what ultimately get focused on. And so he realizes that he doesn't just want the normal jam on toast breakfast. He wants steak for breakfast, and 10 girlfriends, and tons of sex. He wants to get more. He wants to be Chainsaw Man. And to achieve all those dreams, you need to kill Makima.
Kill Makima, man. The theme of the whole show. But like, yeah, it's kind of like crazy. It's like whatever you value. There's just Makima there, just like wanting to create chaos. And to like reiterate on her analogy, she said like she liked the country mouse not because of like the not because of like from the fable, but because she could see like the dogs like kill the country mice, and it's almost like she's like the overseer. She sees everything, and she almost uses the dogs, the people she controls, in order to create chaos in like an area of safety and comfort. And like no matter how much you try to run away, it could actually make things worse. So sometimes you almost have to face that. And and yeah, you just gotta sometimes you just gotta do it. You just gotta do it no matter what they say, man. No matter what you want. Sometimes there's just things that come and you gotta do it. Anyway, this was a great video though. It was a very nice like new perspective that I didn't pick up on the first time I read it, and I think both are very important messages where in one area you have to not be complacent of your situation, and number two, you have to figure out what truly matters and not letting the unimportant things affect the actions you take and the value you generate. But yeah, that's it.